There was this aura around Inigo Philbrick. He went to the right schools, knew the right people. He was handsome, in his early 30s, dating a model. He sold multi-million-dollar artworks by the likes of Christopher Wool, Jean-Michel Basquiat, and Yayoi Kusama. So why was he sentenced to 7 years in prison? And why did the FBI need to fly to a remote island in the South Pacific to arrest him? Well, Philbrick was recently just released from jail, and now he's talking. He owes his former clients $86 million, and the FBI calls him the biggest art fraudster in U.S. history. And it looks like he wants to get back into the art game. I guarantee the story will play itself out soon on Netflix or Amazon. So I thought you should have the scoop before this becomes the topic of conversation at your next cocktail party. Let's get into it. Art lovers, welcome back to the channel. My name is Christopher West, and this is the place where we talk about modern and contemporary art and design. And today we are talking about Inigo Philbrick, the London-born, New York, Connecticut-bred 36-year-old who was once the talk of the art world. He was the golden boy, certain to be the king of the next generation of art dealers. And you might have read a little about his past. This story was covered by much of the art press, as well as outlets like The Guardian and New York Times. But he's also been talking to Vanity Fair, and they just did an extensive article that gives some glimpses into what he might be wanting to do in the future. And that may surprise you. If you're not familiar with his story, here's the brief recap. Inigo was pretty much destined to play some part in the art world. His father was the director of the Aldrich Contemporary Art Museum in Ridgefield, Connecticut, and his mother was a playwright and artist. He studied at Goldsmiths in London and landed an apprenticeship with J. Joplin at White Cube, one of the most influential galleries in London. He worked his way up and eventually became Joplin's protege, becoming assistant collections manager, and with that title came a commission on everything Inigo sold. Now, at White Cube's level, they are often dealing with artwork that can fetch 6 or even 7 figures. So you can only imagine the windfall this might bring to an ambitious 20-something-year-old. Soon he was running his own art fund that Joplin helped set up. He was a fixture at the big auction sales in London and New York. And remember, this was the early to mid-2010s, when the value of art just kept going up and up, and the art market was filled with speculators. Now, if you or I purchase a piece of art, especially if it were to cost us a significant chunk of change, I'm pretty sure we are hanging that on our walls. But these speculators will often buy work, then stick it in a tax-free free port until they can flip it for a profit. And this works out great for everyone but the schmucks like you and I. When you have art of considerable value that's not sitting in a museum or a collector's home, rather it's sitting in a warehouse somewhere, well, that can invite some nefarious activity. Art is no longer just art. It's a commodity. And, as with all commodities, people begin to try and find ways to exploit that and make money. And one of the ways you can do that is to sell fractional ownership of a piece of art. No one is going to hang half a painting on their wall, but if that painting is sitting in a crate in a free port, then what does it matter? Let's take a $6 million painting, share the risk amongst ourselves, then we'll split the upside. Simple, right? And this actually works when the price of art keeps going up and up. But you and I both know things don't just keep going up and up forever. And this brings us back to Inigo. So what we have now is this young guy who's gotten pretty used to private jets and $7,000 suits. And now he has access to the upper echelons of the nearly $68 billion art market. And in 2015, he entered into what seemed to be a dream partnership with a German firm called Fine Art Partners, or FAP for short. Philbrick and FAP would buy works of art that Philbrick would keep in storage until it became pretty clear that he could sell it for a predetermined price. For example, They bought a Donald Judd sculpture for $2.25 million and set a target sales price of $2.8 million. That's over a $500,000 profit when the sale goes through, and everybody's happy. But what happens when that art market starts to change? That Wade Guyton you might have sold a few years ago for $3.5 million, well, it brings less than $2 million today. And as that art market started to sputter, Philbrick got in over his head. He's been promising a lot of profits. So how did it get so out of control? As one art advisor said on ArtNet, it might have been fake all along. He might have been stealing from Peter to pay Paul. Certainly, there are Pauls out there who made out like bandits. Let's look again at this painting by Rudolf Stingel. It's actually a portrait of Pablo Picasso. He told FAP that they acquired this work for $7.1 million. And he promised to sell it for the target price of $9 million. The problem was, 2 months prior, he had sold a 50% share in the same painting to a young collector named Alexander Pesco for $3.35 million. And if you're not good at math, I'll tell you, you can't really have 3 halves of one painting. And if that wasn't enough, he sold the same painting again a few months later to an investment firm in the UK that was run by a couple billionaire brothers. If you're keeping score at home, we now have 5 halves of the same painting. And remember, this is all happening while this painting is just sitting in a warehouse somewhere. It's not like any of these investors were actually hanging these paintings on their walls. So the billionaire brothers, supposed title to the painting in hand and thinking they are the rightful owners, consigned the painting to Christie's, where it sold for around $6.5 million. So what about FAP? Certainly they would have noticed that a painting they thought they owned was heading to the auction block. Turns out Philbrick was weaving a complex web of falsified loan documents, consignment agreements, and titles to all parties involved. He was telling FAP and the other parties that this painting was guaranteed by Christie's to sell for at least $9 million, and he thought it could bring as much as $14 million. So obviously, when these independent parties see this painting sell for $6.5 million, they first get suspicious, and then they get really pissed off. It appears FAP was the first to file a lawsuit, and because of this, the other parties involved start, for the first time, to realize what Inigo had done. And it turns out this wasn't the only painting that Philbrick had sold to multiple parties. There was also this Basquiat. Not only did he sell it or a portion of it multiple times, but he had used it as collateral to secure a $10 million personal loan. He was even pissing off his former mentor, Jay Joplin, and sending him falsified documents and emails about fictitious sales of inventory they owned jointly. So as you can imagine, even more lawsuits start dropping, and Inigo does the one logical thing he can think of. Grabs his girlfriend and heads to the South Pacific island of Vanuatu, which conveniently has no extradition treaty with the United States. Of course, by this time, the FBI is in full-blown investigation mode, and Philbrick is officially a fugitive. And the FBI was calling him the biggest art fraudster in U.S. history. Vanuatu, for its part, avoids having to actually extradite him by simply making the decision to expel him. So Philbrick is subsequently picked up by the FBI and taken back to the United States for trial. So why am I sharing this story with you? Well, Philbrick is now out of prison. He gave his first interview since being released to Vanity Fair, and well, he shared some interesting thoughts about his future and how he is planning to pay back that $86 million to all his victims. Believe it or not, he says he would like to get re-established as an art dealer. Yes, folks, that's right. When you're ready to purchase that next Warhol, just give good old Inigo a call. You see, the art market is notorious for being opaque. On the private market, people have no idea what works were actually bought or sold for. And when you're treating art as strictly a commodity, you're opening yourself up to being swindled. So treat this as a cautionary tale. When you buy a piece of art, actually buy it, hang it on your wall, and enjoy it. Don't let it rot in a warehouse waiting for something bad to happen. You could find you've paid 100% of the money for only 20% of the art. And then you'll be spending as much money on your attorneys as, well, another piece of art. So what's next for Philbrick? Kenny Schachter, who is also a dealer and said he lost $1.75 million in the fraud, may have said it best. He's still smart, and the art world has a short memory, but I'm certainly done. Be smart, folks, and be safe. Subscribe for more tales like this from the world of modern art, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one. Ciao!